Hey guys. Well, for this week's lesson, as promised, we are going to be doing something a little easy for our lesson on Monday and Tuesday, since we had obviously some tech issues last week on Thursday with Pixlr, the Pixlr website not wanting to work out so well. So just a heads up, like this one shouldn't be too hard. Well, fortunately, when I'm recording this, Pixlr.com is back up and running, as well as Pixlr E, which of course is what we use for all our lessons. Um, but the first thing before we get started is you're going to want to make sure that you download a photograph of some kind of place or location. It could be a city, it could be a state, it could be a particular place. But this lesson called Location Text, you are going to be creating basically an image of you're going to be taking an image of a place and adding a title over it, as well as a couple other edits that we'll talk about here in a second. But so first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and Google ourselves a good photograph to use. So I'm just going to stick with Colorado. I'm going to make sure I go to Images. And before you pick an image that you want to use, I mentioned this before, it's always important to come right up here to where it says Tools and choose the size as large. This is going to make sure that you have the highest quality image possible for whatever image or whatever picture you are using. So I'm going to use this one right here. Actually, I already have this one downloaded, but won't hurt to do it again. Make sure it's open. You can see that the pixel size is fairly large. This is what we're looking for. Right click and I'm going to save the image as, and I'm just going to save it to my pictures folder where they automatically go. All right, time to go ahead and open this up in Pixlr.com. So I'll go to open image. I'll find the photograph that I chose. You can see it's right here. And we are ready to go. So for this picture, what we're going to be doing is applying a mosaic filter, a bevel, and then finally we're going to put our text over top of it, describing what it is or where it is that we are looking at. So we're going to be using the filter option, something we haven't really looked at a whole lot yet, actually at all. So I'm going to click on filter, and the first thing I said I wanted to do was create a mosaic effect. This is going to essentially turn this photograph into a way that looks as though it's kind of made up of triangles. So I'm going to click on mosaic, and I'm going to adjust the amount. You can see that if I bring it all the way to the right, it has very few triangles that breaks up the photograph, but we are looking to kind of still like make it look as though we can still see the image. So we're going to probably want to keep it around the single digit area. I'm going to drop it on 5. And of course, you can always click on this button that lets you see what the picture looked like before and after just by clicking on that. Like I said, 4 or 5, I think I'm pretty satisfied with still being able to see enough detail, but having this mosaic effect that we're looking for. I'm going to click apply, and then we're ready for our next step. So the second thing we're going to do is we're going to add what's called a bevel, meaning we're going to add an edge around the outside. And there's going to be some areas here where you can kind of play with, and you can make it fit the way, or make it look the way that you want to. But I'm again going to go to filter, and we are going to go to bevel right here in the middle. So you're going to have a couple options, like I mentioned, with this bevel, where you can adjust the size of the bevel, which is kind of like this edge that you have on the outside. You can adjust what's called the angle, which is kind of how essentially it looks as though it's highlighted. So you can choose however you would like that angle to be. And then also the depth of that bevel doesn't really change much, like you saw me click earlier on the angle. The other things that you want to look at is you'll see that the photo, it's still showing through in some areas. Now, if you like that, that's perfectly fine to keep it that way. Personally, I prefer to have no opacity, meaning that nothing is showing through on the bevel. But if you would like to have some of that show through, you're welcome to adjust it however you like. All right, and then now that I'm finished, and of course, just like before, you can click on this to see what it looked like before and after. I am satisfied with the way that this bevel looks for this image. So I'll hit apply again. Now it is time to dive into our text tool, which we have used already in the past, but it's going to be useful for us to go ahead and look at some of the other options that we have when it comes to using our text tool. So when you click on the T, all you have to do is click anywhere that you would like this text to be started, but you can adjust and move it later. So I'm going to click here in the center, and I'm going to click Add. Now, you're going to name this based off of what location it is, whether it's Colorado or Denver or heck, even Disneyland if that's the picture that you want. But you want to go ahead and make sure that you go ahead and type that out. And I'm actually going to keep it all caps. That way it looks a little more consistent and more of kind of a nice title for our image. You can highlight the text like I just did, and now it's time to change the size and also the font. Now, I am a fan of this Aberrus font, but you can choose any one that you want. It doesn't have to be thick or thin. You know, this atmosphere actually looks pretty cool. I actually like this one, so I'm going to choose that. And I'm also going to change the size. Now you can see that the text is restrained by the box. So if you were wanting to make it a little bit larger, you can always come in here and extend the edges and sides of the text to make sure that everything plays out the way that you want. Now, something you're going to have to consider also is the color that we're applying on this text. We want to make sure that it contrasts the background, meaning that it stands out and it doesn't blend or kind of bleed into the background. It'll be really easy to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the font, but I'm going to change the color. And I'm going to choose purple, kind of like the Colorado Rockies. And then I will click OK. Now, the other thing I want to do is do some of these other adjustments that we have for our text tools. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to consider maybe the spacing of the letters. Do you want them to be a little further apart without changing the size, or keep them nice and close together? I'm also going to go ahead and bold this font because it is definitely a thinner font than some of the other options that we had. What you can also do in what we're going to want to do for this lesson is, because this purple still doesn't quite stand out as much as I want, I'm going to create an outline by clicking right here under Styles, where it's the A with the half of the star. Switch Outline on, and you can see that then gives us a border around the outside of the letter. You can also choose the color that you want. Now, I think that gray color, while I do like it, I think it doesn't stand out enough compared to the rest of the photograph. So I'm going to change it to something lighter, maybe a light gray, not quite pure white, but somewhere up there. And you can see now that really stands out. Now, since I've bolded the text and I've added this outline to the image, I think it's going to be useful for me to space those letters out just a little bit more. So this is where you're going to want to think about the size of your letters and the spacing. And it's going to be different for each of you guys of how you get this accomplished. All right, I think the spacing looks good. None of the letters are bleeding into each other, and I am happy and satisfied with this. Now, that is pretty much it. And like I said, as promised, this was going to be a pretty quick and easy lesson. If you guys would make sure that if you are not finishing up lesson number 6, the face swap lesson, or no, I'm forgetting the number, but the lesson from last week, because Pixlr.com did crash on us on Thursday. Yeah, I need you guys to make sure that you're focusing on that lesson before you take on this one for Monday and Tuesday. If you guys would not mind doing this lesson, are doing 3 images for this week, so creating 3 location text photographs. And like I said, mix it up. Do a couple different places, do a couple different fonts, try out. There's a lot of wiggle room in this lesson for you to try new things. That will be basically what we're trying to get done on Monday and Tuesday. As I said, guys, we're trying to really make sure that we get caught up on the face shift lesson that we did last week, but Pixlr crashed on us Thursday. So please make sure that you, before doing this lesson, that you do go ahead and take care of that one. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will be, as always, here to help during class.